This episode of The Construction Record is brought to you by the Ontario Sewer and Water Main Construction Association. Clean water is everybody's business.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey, and today I have with me
Dan Giurescu from Credivera, formerly known as TerraHub.
And we were just talking in the green room, and I have been told that what we're going to talk about is not, in fact, crypto. And I don't understand crypto, and I barely understand blockchain. So please explain the difference, and also explain what Credivera does that's involving the blockchain.
Absolutely. So a little bit about the blockchain space. It typically comes in two flavors, which are public blockchain and permission blockchain. Mm-hmm. We operate in the permission blockchain space. Which ultimately means that when two people communicate or more parties communicate with each other, we do not settle the agreement via a cryptocurrency exchange.
Okay.
And that's really what the permission blockchain environment does. While in a public blockchain, if you want to settle any sort of a transaction, any sort of a yes/no or the movement of goods or anything like that, it requires a cryptocurrency exchange to validate that everybody's information is correct, and so on and so forth. So for us, what we do is we use the same reliable technology components from the blockchain space for encryption, for management of information, for the ability to have auditable data without ultimately the loss of information, and everybody can have a single source of truth. And we do that using permission blockchain technology. And the value ultimately is the fact that it becomes a single repository of information that can be controlled by all, viewed by all, and ensures that no one bad actor exists amongst the many.
So it's kind of the security aspect, but none of the mining or any other stuff that usually gets hyped. It's
100%.
Just, yeah, exactly. Okay. So now we understand that. Actually, could you explain, because again, I barely understand this, what the blockchain actually is? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening don't understand the underlying technology, including myself.
Sure. So I'll put it at more of the 50,000 foot view level. But the technology has been around for a long time. It actually started as early as the 70s and 80s with a number of mathematical algorithms and formulas that ultimately expanded themselves to the point of allowing us to actually have this concept of blockchain technology become a reality. So fundamentally, the one major thing that sets this technology apart from others is from a traditional database environment, the functionality of delete is ultimately removed, which means that when you hear about this concept of blockchain being an append-only technology, or you can always view back the single source of truth, this is ultimately why. It's because the functionality of delete no longer exists. The encryption methods allow it to be the most secure technology on the planet today. And as we say that, there's always the human nature is to, when somebody says, well, it's impossible to hack, it's like, well, that's exactly what I'm going to try to do. But today, it when people talk about blockchain hacks, it's really still been very much user error driven rather than technology driven. So as a technology, it's intended to be a single source of truth, remove the functionality of delete, allow everybody to see the same thing at the same time. And it's no longer my database, your database, your database, and trying to synchronize it. It's all working off of the same data set. So it can become quite powerful, right? If you think about the construction industry, for example, specifically, think about your project management, think about your cost management, think about your, understanding the price per employee or contractor or subcontractor that you're paying for whoever shows up on site. How do you know that, you asked for a level 2 engineer and it was not a level 1 that got deployed and you got charged for a level 2? Right, all those things now become quite transparent and acknowledged by all.
That was what my next question is to be. How does this specifically apply to the construction industry, which you sort of answered. Construction industry is kind of well known, and this is changing obviously, but it's well known as a pen and paper and maybe Excel kind of an interesting industry. So what kind of an uphill climb is it for you to sort of sell this to the construction industry, which is kind of change adverse to begin with, and then they hear about this esoteric. I mean, it's not esoteric in some circles, but in construction it sure is.
You know what? I find that one thing that's been lacking for many years is simple to use technologies. And I made this comparison actually last week to a client we were working with, where we talked about the fact that your employees on site and all of us, they are used to our mobile devices, and we're used to our iPhones, Androids, whatever it is that we use. And it's just simple, right? Like, you just get it. The user interface is just simple. You just know how to use the app without anybody giving you any training. So we felt like one of the things that was missing in the industry was, how do you create something that's truly simple, that brings a lot of value, regardless of what the technology is that powers it behind the scenes? How do you make something that's just intuitive and easy to use? So more than anything, our success is the fact that we have a simple, easy to use, and easy to launch technology. And once it's in the user's hands, they just want to keep adding more and more to it, which is the exciting part. But we are seeing a big change in the construction industry. A lot of the folks that used to, say, this kind of a tool will never be allowed on site or anything like that. It's okay, but what if I make this tool available for you before you even show up on site, right? You don't have to worry about it, about you carrying your cell phone with you while being on site, because you might end up in a intrinsically safe environment where you might not be allowed to have a mobile device with you or something like that. What if we just give you all the capabilities you need before you even walk onto that, past the fence or past the gate on that work site? So that's the approach that we took. And ultimately, the technology is just the technology behind the scenes, but it lies out to the value proposition, right? Why do I want to do this?
Just glimpsing at sort of the features of what you do, it almost seems like there's a construction management aspect to this, but I could be getting it wrong. Is it that this sort of adds on to whatever is already there in construction management software, or have you got your own functionality in there that does that?
Yeah, it's a good point. So we integrate with some of the major technologies out there already. We're currently in the process of doing integration with Procore for one of our clients, right? So when it comes down to already well-known and established technologies in the ecosystem. But we do also work with a number of legacy systems within the company, right? So we integrate into everything from your HR information management systems to your health and safety management systems to your learning training management technologies. So we're not just our technology and our modules that we bring to the table, but we also integrate all this data into these existing systems. So it's not a big uplift for a company when they come on board to say, now you got to get rid of these 5 techs to ultimately use this. It's a easily embedded tool that just gives you a single source of truth ultimately. So our major use case that we really came out to the market with is this concept of a verified workforce. And how do you ensure that the individuals that show up on site are, 1, who they say they are, 2, have the accreditation they say they do, and 3, that those accreditations are in good standing and they're verified back against the issuing body, right? So how do I know that you're still in good standing with your TDG training from Danatech, or your ground disturbance, or your full arrest certification, or that your WMIS has not come up for expiry, or has been maintained up to date with the in-company rules and regulations? So we really came at it from before you even show up on site, if you're told that these are your minimum 20 certificates to show up on site, how do you prove that? So we use the technology, so this blockchain technology, to build a verified network of this information where the issuer, the individual, and the company are all associated to one single source of truth. So when the company tells you, Dan, you need to have your full arrest, and we'll take any full arrest, but you just choose to take yours from, say, Danatech, then we make sure that your full arrest certificate is connected back to Danatech. Danatech can verify that it's in good standing, and then we And then we bring that information across to the organization to say, as of this point in time, and nothing's happened between now and this point in time, that individual is in good standing. And this happens on a daily basis, right? So the system continuously pings against these databases to make sure that it's in good standing at that point in time when you show up on that site.
Okay. And there's also a Credivera wallet. Now, immediately my brain goes to Bitcoin, but we know that's not the case here. So this is managing real world money, and maybe you could explain how that works. Or maybe it isn't managing money. What's it doing?
Yeah, so the Credivera wallet is basically, and we called it a wallet because we spend a ton of time in field operations in our past experience as a tech company, and as founders, we were the ones typically going to a job site, whether it was in the energy or the construction space, and showing up there with our physical wallet, right, with all of our paper tickets in it, right? Here's my certificates of being able to be allowed to show up on that work site, right? All my hazardous training and site walkthroughs and so on and so forth. So we decided to call this a credential wallet because it's a digital way for you to manage all of these individual certificates. And then what you can do, which is really unique, is you can actually pre-share your wallet with that site supervisor or whoever it is that you're going to showcase this to before walking on site. So we have a compliance module and tool behind the scenes that says, I, as the site supervisor, request that these are the minimum certificates for somebody to show up on site, or for a crew to show up on site. And now the crew members will get the notification and say, here's the things that we need you to have prior to showing up at the gate. So one, it's a much faster time to hands-on tools, benefit for all, because now you kind of just scan yourself at the front gate and you walk right in. If it's a green check mark, that means that you're certified and in good standing. But two, it also helps your employer or your contracting company, when they send you there, not to send you with stuff that you're missing, and then you have to worry about jeopardizing the time on tools for the whole crew that day because you're the only guy that didn't have his H2S cert or his CPR training. Now everybody that goes in can go in and get their jobs done. Everybody wins ultimately because you as a contracting company can do more jobs with more folks that you can bring to additional sites. So one, it increases your revenue side, but two, the employer that brought you on now ensures that from a health and safety perspective, everybody that shows up on site is guaranteed to meet the health and safety standards of that organization.
So to me, that sounds like on my iPhone, for example, I have the Apple Wallet, which has my credit card in it, but it also has my flight. Well, I did until COVID. My flight pass or my Apple gift card or whatever. This is like that, but dynamic and specifically for construction documentation.
Yeah, 100%. So we have two ways of deploying it. So one, it's on a mobile device, and two is on a simple web interface. So what this means is, as long as you have access to a web portal, so think of your Safari, Mozilla's, Firefoxes, whatever you might use. As long as you have access to one of those, you can immediately go in and see your certifications and share them or show them to your site manager or site soup. And and the nice part is it's really about that, connecting it back to the issuing body and ensuring the trust that everybody that shows up is really certified and good to go.
And I just mentioned COVID. We're hopefully getting out of that now, but I would assume that when it started, you guys were there going, okay, we've got a solution for a lot of your problems. Because I know I talked to cement companies that all of a sudden had to just get off paper. So I'm assuming that this is kind of a solution for that. It's like, well, you don't need paper. You can't use paper anymore. Here we are. You can't have contact between people. Here's a thing, the intermediary is your phone or whatever. But I'm not going to explain to you how you do your stuff. You explain to me how this works.
It's really neat because one of the things that, and I didn't mention this earlier, but we have been working really closely on a lot of the new attributes of Bill C-11 when it comes down to the privacy component of individuals' data portability, and the ability to truly own your information, and having the capability as a person to share your data, but ultimately also revoke that data from the company you shared with at the end of that job or that process. So what makes this very important is we're seeing a lot of changes in the policies around data privacy from It started with GDPR in Europe, moved to California, data privacy laws in the States, that then got accepted by and adopted by other states in the US. And now we're moving into what are the new data privacy rights in Canada. And if you're a company that's cross-border or even multinational, you're going to be dealing with this quite a bit. So having a technology like this, and this is where the power of the blockchain component comes into play, where even though it's a tool that's been built for the individual, where the person can own and manage all their information, it also comes with a de-risking for the employer, where they only need to maintain the data that they need to keep for that period of time. And at the end of that transaction, when the person leaves because they decide to go to another company, or you let them go, you can decouple that individual and you can decouple that data. So you're no longer, as a company, held liable of holding somebody's personal information. But two, you as a person now take all of those certificates digitally in your digital wallet, and you can now share them with your next employer. And then you can revoke access from the previous employer of your data and your information. So all of this behind the scenes is becoming a really important fact of managing personal information of individuals, allowing people to have ownership of their data, and removing a lot of the liability from the employer side ultimately. So it's a very powerful tool.
I was next going to ask about scalability, and usually that means bigger, but a lot of construction industry is like two guys in a truck. So how scalable is it on the lower end and in addition to the higher end?
Very, right. Like we're working with, we came out publicly with Cana Construction, which is a well-known company, at least in Western Canada, where the Cana group of companies has actually deployed the technology across all of their employees, but now more so they're deploying it across all of their subcontractor and trades. So everything from literally, two guys in a truck, to those that have, hundreds of employees on their payroll. And it's that scalable, right? So we can, two guys in a truck, literally you're up and running in an hour, right? It's not cumbersome. And for those that are much larger, more established with, traditional legacy systems behind the scenes, we're built with a lot of open APIs. So that means that we're easy to connect to, we're easy to have data transfer in and out as needed. But ultimately, again, keeping it in mind with the data privacy component of the people and supporting the person, right, to have that data. So you can think of if I'm a two guys in a truck, how much more powerful it's going to be for me when I have these digital wallets that I can pre-share with the next company I'm going to go do work for. So when I bid on a project or I get called on a project, I can just show them within seconds that I'm qualified and certified to be that person on that job on that project.
Okay, and I guess my final question is, if let's say I'm two guys in a truck or a big company, like how do they go about, what do they use to to use this every day, but B, to sort of bring it into their company?
Yeah, so like I said, we have two options, and the most favorable option for all is really just having this online web tool, where all we really need from them is their company name, their logo, and who are the users going to be, and they can be set up and running right away. Training videos, so you don't have to sit in through hours of training or sitting in front of your computer. And one of the key attributes, like I said from the beginning, is for us, how do you create an easy to use tool that somebody can just kind of pick up and go, right? You don't have to be sitting, like I said, through 5-6 hour training in front of your computer. You could just grab this and go. So in our last deployment at a few hundred job sites, the guys were so excited about the tool when they learned that this is their wallet that they can then take away with it. They were starting to put in things like their fishing license, their hunting license, their boat license in it, right? Because it's like, hey, this is my tool and I have selected disclosure over it, so I can choose what I want to share with whoever I want to share it with. But if I get pulled by the boating authority on the river while I'm hauling around, I can just show them that, hey, here's my verified boating license from this date, valid until this date, and it's good to go. So they're starting to pretty quickly go like, hey, you know what? I can do this for so many other things.
Okay, and finally, if people are looking for like more information on the system and want to use it for themselves, where would they go to find out more information?
Well, thanks for that. So Credivera.com is the simple way to go in. And lastly, you can just email info@credivera.com, and one of our groups will get back to you right away and set up some time to have an open conversation and learn more about the tool. And also, if interested, you can see a demo and learn how other use cases have been deployed in the industry.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This episode of The Construction Record is brought to you by the Greater Toronto Sewer and Water Main Contractors Association. Clean water, our goal, our future.